Hello and welcome to another installment of Criticisms of Lutheranism. We're looking at baptism, and today we're going to look at Galatians chapter 3. If you haven't watched all the videos in this series, I encourage you to start back at the beginning of this playlist to make sure that you're getting the whole of all the information that we're getting in front of you so that you can have a fair evaluation of what the scriptures teach and what people might criticize in the Lutheran denomination. So, Galatians chapter 3, and this is starting at verse 26. Paul tells us, "So in Christ Jesus, you are all children of God through faith. For all of you who were baptized into Christ have clothed yourselves with Christ." So this verse here says that baptism clothes us, right? Those of us who have been baptized have been clothed. There is a one-to-one comparison, right? The baptism and the clothing are two things. Well, what would we need to be clothed for? Well, if you think back to the beginning of the Bible, Genesis chapter 1 and 2 and 3, you get Adam and Eve created in God's image, created perfectly, and then they fall into sin, and the first thing they notice when they fall into sin, even before God has come and convicted them of their sin and called them out for it, is that they were naked. And nakedness, not just in the sense of they didn't have any clothes on, but naked in the sense that they were exposed. That there was suddenly a breakdown in the relationship. There was something that was incongruent. You know this if you're married and you have sex, right? When you're together and you're married and you have sex, you're naked and you feel no shame because in that moment you have a congruent relationship, a perfect relationship, if you want to call it that. Now, the truth is, if you're married, you know that not every single time you're naked with your spouse do you feel completely comfortable. And that's because as much as sex should be a perfect thing in your relationship, it's not because of your sinfulness. And so you feel that there is something about that person and about you that aren't on the same page, right? So it shows up in the fact that we have no clothes, but there's really something deeper going on there. And so when Paul says that when we are baptized, we clothe ourselves, he is very clearly making a connection back to the Old Testament and the idea of nakedness that Adam and Eve felt when they fell into sin. So he says, if you're baptized, you are clothed, and you are all children of God through faith. And then he says, for, right? You're children of God through faith, for. In other words, the way that you have faith is you have been baptized into Christ, right? You have faith, you are children, because as a result of your baptism, which clothed you with Christ. So that's the short version, Galatians chapter 3, verse 26 and 27. Join us next time for our next study.